Okay, let's get started. Thank you so much for joining us today to our server admin TUG APAC. So I have this is Lakshmi Narayana. So I'm leading this TUG. Uh, so we have two sessions so far, and this is third and the first session in 2021. So somehow my presentation got messed up. Just give me a sec. Yeah, sorry, I'm back. Yes, sir. So yeah, welcome again. So I just messed up with the date, so I just corrected those. And this is our first TUG, the server TUG for APAC in 2021 as well. Thanks for attending everyone for making your efforts from different regions. Uh, so we have Michael as well. I have seen Michael and Kavita and Pravalika, so many familiar faces in here in the attendees. Thank you guys for joining us. Let's quickly go to the agenda that what we are going to discuss today. It's like we have two interesting topics. One is the data management add-on, and another one is the sneak peek at Tableau Services Manager. So data management add-on will be by David, and Tableau Services Manager, which is the web UI and as well as command line utility by Raja, who is another administrator. So we have exciting speakers as well. And if you have any questions, let's not keep your questions in the comment section or the chat section. Put it in the Q&A box. So when you hover your mouse onto the Zoom chat options in the below, you have the Q&A box. So there you can ask your questions if you have any questions. So I'll try to answer the questions while the sessions are happening, and also the speakers will take their turn at the end of their sessions respectively. So thank you so much again. So I'm handing over to you, David. David, you can take on.
Okay. Can you hear me okay, Lakshmi?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay, great. All right, I'll just start my video by way of introduction temporarily. So, hi everyone. You can see I'm in my house like most people at the moment, and I've had to tilt my desk around so you can't see all the mess from the renovation of the painting that's going on outside this door at the moment. So thank you for the opportunity to speak to you today. I'm going to talk about my own experience with the data management add-on. We've been using that probably for about almost 2 years. I think almost since it came out. We were one of the first users in the country to actually get on board and start using it. And our use case is primarily around discovery and analytics. So it's a small team of analysts doing use cases for trying to understand what a problem is, and then working with the business users to actually explore that, enable them to understand things, do a bit of discovery, and then decide what are we going to do about whatever it is we've discovered. So in that terms, it's a relatively small server scenario. I personally have worked with servers considerably larger. One of the other ones that I've been using for the last 5 or 6 years is probably 4 nodes with 800 users, fairly heavy in discovery and analytics. And then, of course, in the company, we have multiple thousand site user site for mainly dashboarding. In this case, we've got about 100 users and a small number of creators. The predominant user base is really around some Explorer, and predominantly Viewer. The reason we've got 100 is we needed the 100 to get the data management add-on, but it actually suits us and the sort of size audience we're doing. We typically have work that has a half-life of probably somewhere between 1 and 6 months. So, you know, you might have a small project, somebody's doing some discovery and analytics, we work out what we want to do, and then off we get and onto another project, another group of users come on and so forth. So to do that, we grabbed what infrastructure we had. We had a couple of VMs available to us. They were, and I will just share my screen because I realized I haven't shared that. So you haven't missed anything at this point in time. It's a very plain presentation. You should be able to see that on the screen, and I'll just pop to the next slide if it's going to talk to me. Right, thank you, sorry. So our initial configuration was 2 nodes, 16 vCPUs, 64 gig RAM of each, and about 350 gig available to the application. It's fairly heavy on flow and extract usage, lots of multi-step flows that we're using. We've got extensive use of hyper extracts stored on Windows file servers, because before 2020.3, you weren't able to write to a database. We're just in the process of moving over to the write to database function. We use one node primarily for Prep Conductor. We've tried sharing our loads across both, but you need to consider the impact on Viz users. And if you look at the server configuration guides, they often recommend dedicating nodes to Prep Conductor, and I would absolutely echo that. It's a very intense memory and CPU utilization process, especially sometimes when you do inefficient flows. We're currently upgrading to new servers and increasing the memory on some of our prep nodes, and potentially putting in more CPU or additional nodes at the moment. And from a data cataloging point of view, which is the other function that's within the data management add-on, we've got about 500 assets that are used for cataloging purposes, which is not a big cataloging environment. It's not like a large reporting server, which will have many thousands, tens of thousands of assets. But it's just something that, to give you an idea of the size that we're doing in this implementation. One of the things I think you need to do is make sure you think about the dimensioning aspects when you're using Prep Conductor. The more RAM, the better, is my guidance available to the nodes running Prep Conductor, especially if you've got quite a few flows running. And you'll occasionally see flows that work on desktop on the Prep version, but won't work on the Prep Conductor, and they fail. And from my experience, they fail for about 5 reasons. The first one is that you've got either ahead of yourself or behind yourself in terms of the prep version that's being used to publish the flow. And I don't, from my experience, recommend going too far beyond the current version of server in terms of Prep Conductor, because sometimes there's a little bit of backward compatibility issues. The other reason is that you've got too many steps in the flow that can cause memory issues within the server, and you can be pushing the limits potentially in server and CPU. And you've got to remember, in server, you've got other flows running, extracts running, visualization, and so forth. If you are using file shares, be careful about conflict on file access. Another observation I found is it's possible to use a server data source as a data set source for a flow, and that works really well. But there's a little subtlety about that that you need to think about, and that is when you access a hyper data set in server, it's got to load it into memory. So you're kind of doing a double load into memory because you've got the server bringing the hyperdata file available for you to look at, and then you've got prep needing to do stuff with it as well. So you actually end up with sort of more intense memory utilization. And the other thing that I think that we see causing flows to potentially fail on server but not on desktop is where you've got expensive operations that might need optimization within your server environment. So, for example, someone might use fixed LODs and a whole bunch of them, which are easy to write as single line commands, but they could be replaced by a single aggregation item that aggregated all of them in one go, and that's more memory efficient. So it's just sometimes we see that as someone is trying to administer a server, that there can be inefficiencies brought in and therefore put your server environment under stress. A couple of little really simple things that make your life easier. You might see this as a simple flow with a single source of data. There's two data sources on there. When you look at the data connections, you see that you can't really see them because it goes +1. A little simple step around this is to add the data source twice, and then you see very clearly as the server administrator and as users that you've got all your connections nicely laid out and easy to see. So just a really simple thing, but it can make trying to understand what's going on with the server a lot easier. And I'm just going to give you some of these tips just to make life easier. The other thing is watch out for a number of things. Watch out for things published in prep that are not used. So in this case, there's a data source here that was connected, but I've never used it, but it's still up there. That can sometimes cause you problems from my experience. So keep that clean on your connections pane. The other thing is make sure users are doing the right thing in terms of publishing around embedding credentials. And think about the context of that credential usage, because like Tableau Desktop to a certain extent, people get those contexts wrong, and then they're no longer working properly when you put it into a server environment. So one of the things that I've found is that really complex flows, and this is a relatively complex flow, but actually it's part of quite a number of flows. It's actually sequence involved in about 10 different flows to actually get the job done. You need to sometimes break up these flows for two reasons. One is their intensive use of resources, and the other is just being able to manage them. They become very long and unwieldy when they're very complex, and if there's any reason for failure or whatever, it's sometimes easier to run them in multiple steps. But when you run it, and you can see this flow here has had a problem with one file that's gone, one output that has failed. And so that then leads you to go, what's wrong? And this is where the data catalog comes in useful, because you can start to see, well, what's the impact of this? I can see that, this particular source that failed here is driving quite a number of subsequent databases and tables. There's 11 other flows using this particular data set, driving another 21 data sources and so forth. So as a server admin, when things go wrong, sometimes understanding the impact is really easy by using the data cataloging tool and the lineage function. So, you'll enjoy that if you've got that functionality. But when you're thinking about managing things as multiple flows, you start to need to think about how you manage schedules. And schedules can get quite, the typical way people just set a bunch of schedules at certain times, users select them and so forth. What I found is when you've got complex flows and sequences, it's really good to set up schedules that are dedicated to those flows and sequences and the steps. And the reason for that is that if something goes wrong or you need to stop them or whatever, you go to a single place to do it. And that applies both to subscriptions as well. So if you've got really critical reporting, I advise using subscriptions in the same way. And there, I really recommend establishing a naming convention for for schedules so that it's easier to manage flows and extracts for that matter, and also where you can actually have a special purpose, a special purpose scenario where you've got a name in there um, to allow you to see. And so you could see, for example, when we go to the task screen, it's really easy for me to see that, and sorry, I've had to blot out some names for confidentiality purposes, but you could see flow A here. There are steps 1, 2, 3 going on, and I can easily see all which flows and which steps these are in, and know, well, it failed at step 1 very quickly, and I know what's going on in that multi-sequence of flows. The other thing is it's then very, very easy to stop a sequence of flows. You haven't got to go and find and stop every flow. You could just go straight to the schedule and disable the schedule. And because it's a dedicated schedule, it's only impacting the flows. Whereas if you've got a schedule that anyone can pick, it's a problem. And having the names like I've been recommending makes it much easier for users to select the right one to use when they're publishing. Something else to also remember is the status site on the server. I've found that the flows status site you need to use in conjunction with the extract status. And there's 2 reasons for that. One is additional information is available in the extract view that is sometimes helpful to you. And the other thing is that if you live in Australian Eastern Standard Time, for some unknown reason, there's this curious little bug on the server that's been there for quite some time that in the flow view won't show you things that have happened until you've ticked over UTC plus 10 for the day. So that can be a little bit frustrating. And if you go back to the extract view, you will see additional information. And often when you hover over these positions, you'll actually get some additional error information that you may not necessarily see in the flow view. I expect that these things are changing in server over time, but it's just something to be aware of. The other nice thing about the Data Manager add-on, it brings the ability to start to put in metadata associated with your data assets. So you can add descriptions, etc., to fields, and so you can start to see more information, and people can manage it as a business glossary around catalog, etc., which is then very much mineable. And if you're using the REST API or the GraphQL API, you can actually recover this information out of the data catalog and make your life a lot easier in terms, because you just take those JSONs and put them straight into Tableau and start visualizing your metadata formats. I've kind of just trying to be putting sort of a few tips as a server user about what I've found useful over the last couple of years of using the product. We tend to roll server updates very quickly. With us, we'll wait till there's at least a .1 or a .2 release in a release, and then we'll roll that in and quickly run with it. Because we're in a development environment, we can afford to do that. But as I said, watch your versioning control on prep from a publishing point of view. It's a little bit easier now that server has publishing functions as well, so you can sometimes avoid some of that problem. But yeah, I've really recommend the product. We have found it really useful to us. It's the speed to insight for us, the ability to quickly manipulate data and do lots of things has been really helpful and really at a good economic cost. And that's something to consider. The total cost of ownership has been very good. So effectively, it's a tool for us as a bunch of analysts. I guess that's probably about all I'm going to say for the time being, and open to questions if anyone wants to ask questions.
David, there is one actually from Vaibhav. So he's asking about the external sites. Vaibhav, can you be a bit more elaborative on the question? What do you mean by external sites?
He's muted.
Okay, let me unmute him so that he can talk. Vaibhav, you can ask your question.
Yeah, so when he was sharing his screen, he went to the external sites. So I wanted to know how the external sites are useful for when we are not monitoring the flows, when we are monitoring the workbooks in Tableau Online.
Oh, you were referring to my slide that talked about an external asset, is that right?
Yes, correct.
Right. So that's the definition in Tableau's data catalog. It actually refers to the external assets that you retrieve information from, right? So it's the original source information that's coming in. So you're actually referencing the input to the Tableau server of the original source.
Yes.
So I'm not sure what your question was.
So my question is that it refers to the information about the hyper, or it refers to the information about what, because I think that it refers data catalog means what, the hypers you're talking about, or anything else you're talking about?
So it depends, right? It depends on what the data source is. It could be a hyperfile and a file share. It could be a database file, could be a text file, could be whatever. And it will reference that as the external asset that was brought in. So it talks about the external asset as what was brought into server at the point of ingestion.
So what it talks about, what it talks about the hypers, like the data it talks about, because anyhow I can check my data through the hypers itself. So how it is beneficial over for a server administrator over Tableau Online, this external thing?
Yeah, I'm sorry, I'm having a little bit of trouble hearing you to understand.
Yeah,
the
just give
nuance
me a
of the
second.
question.
Just give me a second, because this external sites option, which is which you are showing over there, external assets, I cannot see it over my Tableau Online server. I'm not at my Tableau Online right now, so I cannot see it over here. So this depends upon the configuration to configuration, or it depends upon the flow to flow, how it this happens.
Oh, okay. It'll be the external assets is related. What version are you running?
2020.2.
2020.2.
I can see schedule, jobs, tasks, site status, settings, users groups over my server, but I cannot see this.
And is this Tableau Online or is this Tableau?
It's Tableau
server?
Online. I'm working on Tableau Online.
Okay.
2020.2 online.
That's funny. I'm looking at Tableau Online right at the moment, and I've actually got the external assets available to me. So
yeah, even I have opened it, and I cannot see. Can you share your screen once more?
Yeah, sure. Just a second. So I'm currently on. I'm just sharing the screen that's showing my Tableau Online view. I think.
Yes. Oh, yeah, it is coming in recommendations. After recommendations, I am not getting this option of external assets.
So you can see all the external assets here that are on this Tableau Online server.
Okay. Yeah, that's a very cool feature, because earlier you have to go to data sources for a particular workbook and then access all the data sources. Through this, you can check all the data sources. Yeah.
That's right, and then I can look at this one that I was looking at just before, and then start going down and see the metadata associated with it, right? So, and here you've got the lineage. So it's a really good function to have the catalog.
Yes,
now
really
maybe
cool
yeah.
Which version you are using? Which version you are using for Tableau Online?
The latest versions. So there we go. Sorry. I think this is 20.4. Yeah.
Okay, you the latest one. It might be there.
my use, this is a demo site that I've set up just for some of the visitors the pictures I use today. I was hoping to do it completely all live, but I don't trust doing live necessarily.
No,
So
that breaches the confidentiality as well. Once you show the server as well.
So our use case is using an on-prem server. This is online. They're pretty well interchangeable, of course, except you don't necessarily see all of the server status information that you might see on your own on-prem server, but you see very close to it, and it's very similar.
Okay.
Any other questions?
No. It was okay. And how you see the flows over here? Your flows, Tableau prep flows.
How do we what? Sorry.
How do you see your Tableau workflows over here? Tableau prep workflows.
Right. So if you want to see all of your scheduled ones, go to this screen. The tasks is your go-to screen to see what's happening about what's scheduled. But of course, the site status to see your flow performance history. I
was thinking that it also has an object like we have an option for data source to check all the data sources. I thought that Tableau Online also has an option for checking the workflows. So that's why I was checking my server. So I thought to ask this thing.
Yes.
Because I couldn't find an option.
So go to schedules. So go to tasks and go to flows. Right. Okay, I haven't got any scheduled at the moment. Right. So I've turned them off. But if I was to go to my company one, you would see a lot of information, which I showed, I think, in, just let me bring this up, in this screen here, which is actually looking at that task view of all the flows that were running, and this is a small section of them, and you can see the flow name, what schedule was running, whether it failed or succeeded. It's a very good screen to go to. Okay. Yeah. Right. Any other questions?
Yeah, I'm about to say that. So thanks, Vaibhav. You can go on mute while I read out the other questions for the group. Yeah. Okay. There is another question from Michael. Before data management add-on, what were you doing to achieve the value add benefits the add-on offers? It's like how you're managing these things before the add-on.
Right. Using other ETL tools, in potentially having to invest in other ETL tools. I can tell you the total cost of ownership for a small server like this is very, very good. And I don't want to talk dollars because I think that's for Tableau to talk about, but the total cost of ownership in our situation is extremely good to do it this way. When you're getting up to a server that's got many thousands of users, you may say that it's not justified, but then I would suggest to you that the use case is probably different. And so you probably want the cataloging for that size server, and that starts to become more important. In terms of prep usage, if you've got a lot of discovery and development work going on, then maybe that needs to be happening somewhere else than a huge mega site server if you want the best value for approaching it, and then publish it to your final server once you've done that. But from a cataloging point of view, it's really, really useful on a large server. So, it's whatever's driving a use case. In our situation, it was a laid down misere for doing our discovery in Tableau to then it integrates so nicely the prep function, the prep conductor, and the catalog. It just makes life so much easier. And the cost is very effective. Next question.
It's the same one from Michael again. So was there any cost justification performed in deciding whether the data management add-on was right for your environment, or how do you justify the ongoing expense?
Okay, so effectively I needed about, you can do the maths, you can find out how much the cost is for a minimum site users, right? 100 users. It's not that much for the data management add-on. Then do the costs of looking around at other ETL tools and go, okay, How much is it going to cost me for a license? And you very quickly realize that when packaged together, the incremental cost is very, very effective. I'll let you do the maths and the sums. Now, if I was going, in my case, I was looking at doing it to one of our servers that had 1,000 users, except I had a small number of users that needed this functionality, then the cost was less justified, but it was still very, very good, right? It just was less justified in my use case, but compared to buying another product and then having to integrate it and run it on a different server and all the other things, it really, you need to look at the TCO and you'll find that it's very effective for that use case.
Okay, so there is another question from Renal. Uh, so great tips, obviously, from David. So we can get the documentation around the Tableau side, but it is difficult to get your experience, David. Thanks for that. So have you tried integrating the catalog with an enterprise catalog like MDM platforms or something other?
No, not at this point. As a company, we have a different product that we're using for overall data cataloging. I pointed you to the web APIs there before, and that provides a very easy way to extract the data out or to actually input the data, right, via the REST API. So you can move in and out the data from the two systems. I haven't actually done it apart from extracting data myself, but the possibility is there.
Okay, perfect. One last question. What benefits did the data management add-on provide to the business or your team? So how did it help you going actually?
So we were very quickly able to investigate, prototype, discover what was going on with data sets. And because Tableau Server is so good for sharing the information back to the people that you're trying to discover and also allowing them to then do further additional self-discovery, we had a very good self-contained environment for that collaboration piece. So, yep, we had to do some heavy manipulation on the data. We used Prep and Conductor to do that. But then we had a really good visualization tool that was available. Users had the ability to edit and modify, get alerts, set up metrics. The whole environment was so easy for us to guide business users to use. So that was the big advantage for us. And so it was a self-contained. Now, of course, there's going to be use cases where, we want a full notebook-driven data science environment. But for these use cases we were doing, that wasn't appropriate. We didn't need it.
Okay.
And we
Thanks.
had ready access for the business.
Yeah. Yeah. Thanks, David. So those are the questions that we have got. One more we have got. So we'll just answer this last one, and after that we'll continue with the Raja's session, David. So how are you triggering the flows if it is
Right.
based on
So
events?
at the moment we are triggering the flows based on time schedules. I would like to see a feature within Tableau that allows you to trigger additional flows based on the output or success of a previous flow. That would be great, but it's not there yet. I know it's being talked about in the features discussions in the forums, which I've been participating in. So yes. Anyway, yeah, so that's a requested feature, I think. You can do some things, like if you want to do tab command type things to do that, but we're not doing that.
Okay. Yeah, that's most of it. So thank you so much, David, and the participants as well. It's quite interacting than I have expected. So yeah, we'll continue with the Raja's session now. If you have any questions, you can put those in the Q&A box. So we'll try to answer those in there. Raja, over to you. You can start. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Lakshmi. Thanks, David, for a nice section. I'm sharing my screen.
Yeah, we can see.
Yeah. Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for giving me opportunity to talk in server admin to UZ, the Tableau server user group of APAC level. This is my first time I am trying as a speaker, so that a lot of encouraging me and having me here. The topic that we are going to talk about is all about TSM, which is Tableau Services Manager. We all know Tableau has introduced a complete web UI and command line utility for the server core administrators like us to make our day-to-day responsibility easier and to make our job much more simple in a way. What we will discuss today, we will discuss about how this TSM have been started and what are the different varieties of TSMs are available, like the TSM web UI and the TSM command line utility. We will go through all of those. Myself, Raja, I am working as a senior BI administrator. I have experience into multiple BI tools, including Tableau, Power BI, and some others also. But my key and core responsibilities are as I like as a Tableau server administrator. Let's get into the topic. As I said, we will discuss about the TSM overview. What is a TSM actually? Because some of the users in the group, I can see they are from the development background. So we will start with the basic. What is TSM and when was it started and what was the tools earlier that we are using instead of TSM? Because TSM has been introduced in the latest versions only. So how admins were managing their jobs previously without a TSM at all. So we quickly talk about that also. And after that we will look at when was it started, as I said, and at last I will walk through the TSM web UI as well as TSM command line utilities with some examples. I will log in into server and I will show you how the web UI looks like and different options that are available, and also how the TSM command line utilities look like and what are the options to use it and how we will use it with some examples. Now let us see what is TSM. So TSM is, as I said, Tableau Services Manager, which gives a much more similar way or much more organized way to do some of the key administrative activities from GUI, and many of the admin
I'm
functionalities
still
are,
on it, but sorry.
yeah, the admin activities from the backend, which is command line utility. So this TSM comes with two ways. One is web UI and another is command line utility. The web UI, how that it looks like, let me show you. So this is how the web Tableau web UI looks like. So in this web UI, how to log in into this TSM web UI? TSM web UI works on based with the key service called Tableau Administration Controller, which you can see in the services. You can see here Tab Admin Controller. This is the key administrator controller, which is the key service responsible for this web UI and also the command line utility. If for suppose for some reason if you are not able to reach out to the web UI or a command line utility, you have to immediately come and check this service whether it is running or not. So how to log into this web UI? So you have to log in using 8850 port, because this process or this specific service runs on 8850 port. So once you log in inside your, you will see three different tabs. See, uh, one is status, and other is maintenance, and the other is configuration. So there are different options. So I will just show you all of these options in a bit more minutes, and at the same time let us connect and quickly look at the command line utility, how we can, let's say, on the top hand right side, if you see Tableau server is degraded on the TSM web UI, if I have to check this from my command line utility, I have to type, I can open my command line utility, TSM space status. Well, you can see it says it is degraded. Let's say both are same. Either you can check from front end or you can check from the back end. So you may ask, so when we can do the same things from web UI, why there is a need of command line utility? Let's say there are 100 activities we will do from command line utility. Let us assume an example, but of those 100, only 10 are available right now in the web UI, which means you cannot do all of the activities that you are doing from the TSM command line utility. You cannot do all of them from web UI. Web UI is limited, but it is still growing. It is good that Tableau has started this, because I said right how we were doing this before. So when was the TSM has been started? So TSM has been started from 10.5 version, which was the first release from Linux. Before that, Tableau server was only for Windows. So when it was released for Linux, obviously we know that there is no GUI at all for Linux. Then how this is going to be managed? That is when Tableau has released TSM Web UI as well as command line utility or the TSM functionality for Linux versions also. Till then, what was the functionalities that we are using? How we were doing the admin activities? Let's see, if I had to take a backup, I have to do a restart. How we are doing? Let's assume our Tableau server is running on a single node Windows server. Okay. So if I have to restart the Tableau server, I was doing before and I am doing now. So I am doing it before is I have to log in into that specific server, whichever Windows server the Tableau server was running, and I have to open the command prompt. I have to write a command like tab admin restart. So what was the utility then? It was tab admin. Tab admin restart for doing restart, and I want to take a backup, tab admin space backup. Likewise, I used the tab admin and there was no GUI as such, and also whatever, even the very small kind of admin activity that I have to do, I have to mandatory login to Windows server where my Tableau server was running. There is no other way to do. But now, after introduction of this TSM into picture, so this is, as you have already seen, the TSM web UI is coming and directly as a GUI, which I can directly access via web browser. You can see the web browser already, right? So I am trying directly reaching through 8850 port and from an Internet Explorer or a Chrome. So if even the ports are opened outside, you can open the same TSM page from your local machine also. But make sure your laptop is connected to your organization network. It is recommended or the best practice is not to use this TSM page directly from outside of the network. It is always available to be in your network and use this within your network on premises only. For now, as I said, it has given GUI which can access to via web browser, and it is more easy to use because if you want to do a restart of the server, so previously I said I have to log in into the Windows server, but now what I can do, I can simply send a notification, and once the change management approves the restart, which is a generic process in any organization we would follow, then I will simply open the TSM page from my local system itself. On the top hand right side you can see TSM status. Then I will click here, just I will click on the restart. So my Tableau server will restart it immediately. I'm not going to do this. Why? Because it takes much time to start. And what happens if I suddenly close this browser? Nothing will happen. I will show you that also. So now I'm closing this browser, and you can see I will immediately log in again. So you can see it is open. Nothing will happen because it is a job that is being submitted to your TSM administration controller. Even if you by mistakenly close this web browser, nothing will happen. Your job will continue to run. Then let's suppose how many jobs have been run so far. How do I check? That's so, as I said, that a job has been submitted and the job is running, but how do I check? How many previous jobs were run? That is something where my command line will come into my handy now. I'm logging into server. Let's open the command prompt. Make sure that when you are opening the command line or command prompt, just open it as a run as administrator privileges, because to run the TSM command you need administrative privileges. So now I have opened this as a with an administrative privileges. Now I can type the command TSM space jobs space list. Once I enter that command, then it will show me what are the jobs that were run successfully, or if some other admin in the same team, if he has run some job, if he has done something, some maintenance activity or anything, then I can see there and then itself. So this is the quick advantage of one of the smallest thing that I was struggling difficulty before, because I have to log into the server and I have to run from there. But now I can do right away from my laptop itself or the desktop that was provided to me. And what are the other things we can do directly from web UI? Let me take you or let me walk you through the different options that are there in the TSM web UI functionality. So here first look at the status page. So status page will give us a quick status. How are what are the processes that are there in my server. So likewise, if you look at the current scenario right now, so you see all of the processes here are how many processes active and how many processes are busy. You can check everything with a simple glance from your status page. What if I have to check the same thing from command line utility? I will go to my command prompt, then I will type tsm space status space hyphen v for verbose. With this command, I just click enter. It will show me all the processes that are running. You can see here on which node all the process, which process are running, which were busy and which were in the error state. Whatever the actual process of status, it will show me everything. Now let us switch back to GUI. After the status, we have the maintenance tab. So what is maintenance tab? Let's suppose you are facing a frequent issue on Tableau server and you have raised a case with Tableau support guys and they have asked you for the logs. What I was doing previously I have to collect the logs from the server, copy it to somewhere outside the server and then upload that zip file to the Tableau portal. So that was the path or was the series of steps I have to follow previously. But now I can quickly run the zip logs from this maintenance tab itself directly. We'll select generate log file snapshot. It will ask for the date. I'll keep it as it is and click on generate log file snapshot. It will take a minute. So once these zip logs are created, so what I can do, let us see.
Just to add one more point, which Raja has already spoke about. So let's say now the job is running, and even if we close it now and come back to the same screen, the same job will run. It will not fail actually.
So you can see the logs were created here. I will select these logs and click upload to the case. It will ask for the case number and my organization email ID. So these logs will be directly uploaded to the case. See how easy now in terms of doing these things. Also, if I want to download these logs and do analysis myself, I can click download here and download the logs also. This is about the maintenance, and other key improvement is the configuration. So what is the configuration? So there are different tabs in the configuration. So let's say the topology. In the topology, so now let us suppose you have two backgrounders that are running in your system and you want to increase it to 4. Okay. So previously we used to, when we increase the number of process, we have to restart the entire server. But now Tableau has introduced a concept called dynamic topology changes. What is this dynamic topology changes? Let me show you now. I am making my backgrounder to number 4 from the existing two numbers. And once I make this on the top hand right side, you will see the change called pending changes. You will click on that pending changes. Here we will see the apply live changes, which means it will not require any restart. So which is the coolest thing, because let's say during night times or during the off business hours, you have more number of extracts that are running in your system. So what you can do, you can automate this process using TSM commands. So same thing I am doing here, you can do from TSM commands also. So what you can do during off business hours, you can increase your backgrounders to maybe 4 or 6 during the off business hours, and when your business starts, you can decrease it to the old number. You can automate this process so that you can run your extract more efficiently, and also you can utilize your server resources also very efficiently. This is an advantage with the hot topology changes. So you can increase and decrease your vSQL server, and you can increase and decrease your backgrounder process also using the same. And there are other tabs also here. You can see security. In the security tab, we can enable the SSL here and user identity access. We can change the authentication method, uh, local or browser SAML. You can configure SAML from here, and notifications. You can enable the SMTP notification. This SMTP server address are given by the Windows team, and you can keep what email ID you require and to whom it should be sent, and the server Tableau server, and you can mention the events here. This should be done by each and every admin. Why? Because we should know if any space is fully occupied, we should get an alert. Let's suppose you are having the 20% disk space, then you will get alert that your server is running with a low disk space. If it is not get, if we have not done any maintenance, then our Tableau server may crash. This is the recent scenarios I have listened from so many people. And the main important thing is licensing. Here you can manage your license, you can activate your license, you can check the expiry date, and you can manage the license from here itself. So this is all about TSM Web UI and the command line utility, and this is how it helped me a lot being as a server core administrator. See, if you have any questions, you can write in the Q&A section. I will try to answer the questions there. Thank you so much for giving me this opportunity to have my thoughts around this.
Okay, thank you so much, Raja. So we have a question which says, can we get an email alert when any process goes down?
Yes, in the SMTP server, while we are alerting, while we are keeping, if any process is gone down, it will immediately send an notification that particular process is gone down. And if any failure happens for the repository, let's suppose on in multi-node architecture, if a repository failed and another repository failed over, it sends an alert that your repository is failover.
Okay, so can you show that, Raja, please?
Yeah, sure. See here, server health monitoring. Send emails for Tableau server process events up when it is up, when it is down, and when failure occurs. You should select this thing.
How do Okay, so how do set the dynamic topology? Can we schedule it, especially during peak hours, if you want to increase the backgrounder node? Yes, so that is what Raja has. Raja, let me answer this question. So yes, we
Sure,
can
sure.
do the dynamic topology using the automation part as well. So we can use TSM commands for that. So TSM set process command is there. So you can keep that command in a either batch file or a PowerShell script. And according to your schedules, let's say you want to increase your number of backgrounders post business hours, maybe after 5 p.m. So at around 5:30 p.m., you can schedule that in a Windows, if it is a Windows machine, in Windows scheduler, which is task scheduler, or if it is a Linux, you can use a cron job or something, and you can put that in a script. The command, as I said, the TSM topology set processes command. Based on that, you can automate this dynamic topology changes. This is much recommended because during the off business hours, your server will not do anything at all. So what you can do in a much more efficient way, as Raza mentioned, you can do increase the number of backgrounders, so they will be able to do more number of extract jobs. Okay, thank you, thank you so much. So we'll be around. Let me share my screen. So yeah, there are two wonderful sessions by David and as well as Raja on data management add-on, which obviously helps a lot in the form of the data management and the other catalog and the other activities, and also the TSM intro and sneak peek at Tableau, TSM web UI and command line utility where Raja is also great. So thank you so much, guys, for taking your time and giving your experience to the all the users across APAC. So guys, so all of the attendees, you can make a note of these where to find us things. You can follow us on Twitter. The server TUG is the tag, or we have a group in LinkedIn which is Tableau server admin TUG APAC. You can join that group as well for more information or the communications that we send for meetups or any other activities that we do. And also, if you would like to speak in our next session, be it a small topic or be it a big topic, it doesn't really matter. What really matters to us, being part of the community, it's all about sharing what you know. So if you want to be as a speaker in our next meetup, you can drop a note to the server to ug@gmail.com, and we are happy to have you on board, and we'll help you with all the ways, like with your presentation or anything that we can help. So we'll be here, and you can type your questions or anything other than that. Thank you so much, guys.
So Lakshmi, it looks like we're done with questions, so we can finish up.
Yes, so there is one actually. How to bring failed backgrounder to up without restarting the server. So what you can probably try, you can try the tsm start command directly. It doesn't stop or restart any other processes which are already running. Rather, it tries to start a process which is in error state and if it is down. But if even tsm start couldn't able to start the process by automatically itself, then definitely there is something wrong on that specific host. So I would advise you to go and check the background or logs, specific background or logs on that the node that you have. In order to list down the nodes, you can run the command like tsm list nodes command. You will get all of the nodes that are there in your server, so you can go in that way.
It's David here. Lakshmi, I actually have found another way to do it as well under certain circumstances. You can actually reduce the number of backgrounder tasks to zero and then re-increase them, and that will actually not cause an outage, but often recover from a backgrounder task that goes into a strange state. It's actually quite interesting. That's the dynamic assignment with TSM.
Makes more easy, makes life more easy, right?
Yes, doesn't always works, but 9 times out of 10 it does. So reduce it down to zero. As long as you've got some viz processes in place, you can reduce the backgrounders to zero and then back up again.
It helps. Okay, so we have answered all of your questions. As I said, if you still have any questions, you can reach out to us via these three channels that are there on the screen. So thank you so much, thank you so much everyone for joining us today, and a special thanks to David and Raja again for stepping in and taking your time to speak in front of all of our community data family members. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.